good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time of day that you hear this message, I pray that all is well with you and your loved ones. I'm here in lovely Nigeria, and I've been immersed in ritual and ceremony and deep conversation with good people and good activities. And so I'm thankful for the state of mind that results from coming back to the root and touching ground on the original soil, on the land of the divinities. And one of the realizations that I came to in a conversation with a couple of owls last night was the importance of consistency. And when I say consistency, I mean agreement between different practices, right? On one level, you got within a kingdom, you have different practices, you got different methodologies, you have different disciplines, right? And then within a, let's say, a group, and then within a lineage, and then within particular temples, you have diversity. Things are going to do things a little bit differently. People will do things a little bit differently. If, for example, my favorite example is like gumbo. For if you're African American, you've more than likely had gumbo or heard of gumbo, and there's differences, right? And from one region to the next, there's different kinds of gumbo. Texas gumbo is different from Louisiana gumbo, is different from Tennessee gumbo, etc., etc. There's going to be different, variations. And then within Texas, within Louisiana, within Tennessee, there's going to be different kinds of ways to different recipes for making gumbo. And then within the family, right? Your people are going to take Big Mama's recipe and they're going to change it up a little bit. They're going to take Big Daddy's recipe and they'll change it up. And so different groups, different family members or houses are going to do things a little bit differently. So it is with Ifa. So it is with Orisha lifestyle overall. Diversity is built into the program, right? But what keeps everything together and keeps it authentic is this idea of consistency. There's certain things that from region to region and lineage to lineage and tradition to tradition and house to house, there's certain elements that must be present that to make a thing a thing. Okay? So there's certain things that have to be present in order to make Ifa practice actually Ifa, to make Shango devotion real, etc., etc. And that those elements that make it authentic are also what make consistency. They create consistency so that from one place to another, people can espouse this tradition and this practice because there is, at a certain level, consistency, there's congruency, there's harmony, there's agreement between what we do, what we believe, why we do it, why we believe it. Okay? And so, to give you another example, if you were to consider, on a deeper level than, say, gumbo, you were to look at something like Jesus, right? Let's say Jesus. Most of us as African Americans come out of a Christian tradition, so at some level you're going to have some relationship with or an understanding of Jesus. Let's imagine you are introduced to Jesus in and of himself, just Jesus. And just by virtue of where you grew up or where you are at the time, you met a Muslim. And you started to talk to him or her about Jesus. And they talked they taught you about Jesus from their perspective. And then you met a Jew, and the same thing happened. They teach you about Jesus. And then you meet a Christian, and they teach you about Jesus. A Protestant Christian, they teach you about Jesus. And you meet a Catholic, and they teach you about Jesus. And you spend maybe 5 years learning about Jesus from Christians, from Muslims, from Jews, from Catholics, from Protestants, and you're learning about Jesus. And then the time comes that you feel like Jesus is something special, and it's not just learning about Jesus, but I want to worship Jesus. I want to dedicate my life to Jesus. I want to be a devotee of Jesus. Okay? And you decide that you are drawn to Islam. Right? You like what they say about Jesus. You like their perspective on Jesus. It resonates with you. It makes the most sense to you. And so you say, I'm going to devote myself, I'm going to become a Muslim because of the way they teach about Jesus. And so you start to make those steps towards becoming a Muslim. But they keep telling you about the Prophet Muhammad and the Prophet, and and you're saying, well, what about Jesus? And they're saying, yeah, but the Prophet Muhammad. You say, but what about Jesus? Yeah, but the Prophet Muhammad, right? And you're saying, there's this inconsistency, right, between what you're seeking and the system or the method by which you are trying to seek that thing, right? Because the Muslims do know Jesus, and Jesus is detailed and explained in their sacred text, okay? But their practice doesn't revolve around worshiping Jesus, right? So you got a problem, because what you want is inconsistent with the system that you have chosen to practice, okay? So a similar thing sometimes happens with Orisha devotees. You learned about Oshun, you learned about Shonko, you learned about Obatala, right? But the people who were teaching you, they weren't even clear themselves that's what they were teaching. Some of it came from Candomblé in Brazil, some of it came from Cuba, some of it came from Nigeria. They just were telling you that these are attributes of Oshun. This is Oshun is this, and Oshun is that, Oshun is the other, right? And so you love those teachings, and you want to follow up on those teachings, to cultivate those teachings, and then you choose a system. You choose to practice Isheshe, the West African tradition, and you're wondering, why aren't they developing this idea of Oshun as this, right? Because that attribute of Oshun is not endemic. It's not part of our system. It's not part of our practice. It's not part of our sacred text or our belief system. That aspect of Oshun that you're talking about really is only developed amongst the Afro-Cubans. It's not good or bad. I'm not trying to qualify it one way or the other. I'm just saying that what you're seeking is inconsistent with the system, right? And so it matters at the moment that you're ready to commit. It matters at the moment that you want to go from concept and ideas and abstractions to actual practice, and you want to start to devote yourself to something. That's when you realize how important it is for what you believe and what your understanding is and what you practice. It's important for all of those things to be consistent, for them to be congruent with one another, for them to agree with one another, okay? And this is the importance of the Orisha Lifestyle Academy, right? What we do is we teach not only consistency about subject matter, but our methodology and our approach is consistent. So the prayers are consistent with the calendar. It's consistent with the rituals. It's consistent with the rites of passage and the ceremonies. All of the different parts are consistent with one another. So that as you elevate and you deepen your study and your practice, you are not going to come to a point wherein you're trying to worship Jesus through Islam. Okay? And so I invite you to visit OrishaLifestyle.com and start to explore the publications, explore the videos, explore the classes, and different ways that you can get involved with starting your practice and your study, so that you can make steps that will promote and secure and ensure consistency from one part of your practice and your belief system to another. Abo Raboye, Abo Shisho.